Social structure of this country, we are understanding why we have the poorest level of education, why we have the highest percentage of unemployment. You see, there are people that coming out of the barrio, out of the campos, out of the mountains, who are saying, I don't understand that. That's radical shit. Until it affects him.
You've probably heard of the Chicano movement.
But what about Chicanas?
Let's talk about the Chicana movement and how the writings of one specific Chicana feminist, Francisca Flores, helped lead the way. First, we must understand, what was the Chicano movement? Emerging predominantly in the 60s and 70s, the Chicano movement was never a unified force, but instead a series of movements led by different organizations, such as the Brown Berets, La Raza Unida Party, and the Crusade for Justice. Across the United States, but especially in areas such as East LA, these organizations advocated for things such as equality in education, police reform and abolition, and improved working conditions. Among one of the most famous protests during this time was the East LA student walkouts in 1968, in which students boycotted schools until government and administration members would negotiate with them on their list of demands. These demands revolved around changing curriculum to include Mexican history and overall making school equitable for people of color. Women supported and participated in the Chicano movement, but Chicana feminists challenged the ever-present patterns of misogyny within the movement. Mexican Americans needed to have a sense of cultural nationalism in the face of an Anglo-dominated country, but this also came with the oppressive gender norms present in machismo culture. One major way that Chicana feminists got their message out was through writing publications and organizations. Francisca Flores was a Chicana feminist and activist who worked from the 1930s all the way into the 1990s. Like many Chicana women at the time, she felt stuck, fighting for her community in the Chicano movement, but also dealing with the sexism from the men around her. A lot of the issues that mattered to Chicanas just weren't being talked about, so she started organizing. Flores helped create 4 major organizations for Chicanas: the League of Mexican American Women in 1958, Comisión Feminista Mexicana in 1970, the Chicana Service Action Center in 1972, and Centro de Niños in 1973. These groups fought for fair jobs, better education, childcare, welfare support, and reproductive rights. Flores was also a journalist. In 1963, Flores started writing and publishing a newsletter called Carta Editorial, where she started talking about politics and justice. In 1970, she turned it into a new journal called Regeneración, inspired by a radical newspaper from the Mexican Revolution. Even though she focused on the struggles of Chicana women, Flores made it clear: fighting sexism and racism is about fighting for everyone. She believed that you couldn't have real freedom unless you included women, and especially women of color, in the conversation. In one article she wrote called Equality, Flores explained why Chicana women needed their own movement. She calls out machismo, a cultural idea that promotes traditional male dominance and the belief that men should be strong, aggressive, and in control, as something that hurts both men and women. It keeps women stuck at home and pressures men to be the only breadwinners, even when that leads to stress, drinking, or domestic violence. Flores also talks about how Chicanas face more challenges than white women, like lower paying jobs, childcare, and racism, making it hard to unite under mainstream feminism. She says that for Chicana women to be free, their whole families and communities have to be free too. That means ending both sexism and racism, and letting women lead the way. Chicana feminism isn't just about one group of people. It's about challenging the systems that hurt all of us. Francisca Flores and other Chicana feminists understood that you can't fight racism without also fighting sexism, and you can't talk about gender without talking about class, culture, and power. By challenging both the white feminist movement and the male-dominated Chicano movement, Chicana feminists created space for a more honest and more complete version of justice. Their fight wasn't just about representation. It was about survival, dignity, and freedom. Because when Chicana women rise, their communities rise with them. And if we want true liberation for everyone, then Chicana feminism can't be left out of the story. It has to be at the center.